Life is tough. Sure, it has its good bits, but it also has some really bad bits. I think mental health can relate a lot to the sea. Calm and tranquil at times, but also dangerous. Nobody knows what's going on under the water. Mental health is at an all-time high in this country. At a time when so many people are talking about mental health, why is it still such a taboo subject? In the UK, it's estimated that 115 people take their lives every week to suicide. 75% of those people are men. That's around 85 men that take their lives every week because they're unhappy. Take that down to days, and that's 12 men a day. For every suicide, there are far more suicide attempts and even more suicidal thoughts. But why? Why, at a time where supposedly everybody is talking about mental health, does nobody feel like they can talk? Why do people feel when the water gets too rough that they cannot speak up? Why do people feel as if they've been silenced? To understand a little bit more about the effects of suicide, I spoke to Paul and Karen about their son Harry, who had ADHD and tragically took his life after receiving his AS level results.
Right, we were in France and he was awaiting his AS results, and he was in the place he loved.
And then I can't remember, we were emailed the results, and they weren't great, to put it mildly. And whilst we were working out what we could do, trying to get in contact with the school to work out what the options were.
Whether he'd have to go down a year or whatever. We don't know how much of that he was aware of. He went off for a walk, which is what he often did, but he didn't come back.
And I found him about 2.5 hours later, and that was it. We decided it was the end of the road. We went from a family of 5 to a family of 4.
And we had no idea. We can't really say what if, because what if are two very, very dangerous words.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing you can do about it. Hindsight's wonderful.
The ironic thing was that 2 of his good friends were in the same position, and they went.
He didn't even know.
Went back a year.
Had he known that his 2 best mates were actually going to have to do exactly the same thing, he probably would have been all right. But but what if
again?
Yeah.
But you've done something really special. 10 years on.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I hope so. Yeah, it was.
It took us about a year to get the concept, but once we got the concept, and that was really when we decided it was going to be bikes, then I said I want to cycle a heart shape, because I hadn't seen anybody that had done that before. So we constructed one, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, eventually, cut long story short, this handmade mat
with string,
with bits of string, we were working out the practicalities of where we could actually go, and in what times, and starting and finishing here. It ended up a very sort of odd-shaped heart, and I went, "Oh, that's a wonky heart." Bang! So there you go. That was the that gave the challenge the name, the Wonky Heart Cycle Challenge.
Exactly how far was it?
In total, 583 miles.
No, 586.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
Those 3 miles make the difference. They make the difference.
We all love Harry and we all miss him enormously, don't we?
I was also lucky enough to speak to Harry's brother Jack, where he opened up to me about his experience with his brother's story and whether he saw any signs of what was to come.
Oh my God, I had no idea. It was really genuinely blew me, sideways. I just couldn't even fathom that it would be like that. And yeah, obviously when I heard the news, it was just, broke me almost. It broke all of us. My parents mentioned before about how he loved life, and he just had this real joy, this spark. I think you've never seen it almost anyone else, like someone who just loved things as much. Like he loved music. He found like a hobby and he just really like jump into it with full gusto. Like I was envious, because I'm always one of those people who sort of this looks kind of fun, and he would just like go at it and like smash it out, and then be able to kind of commit himself to anything with like everything he had, because he's just that kind of person who just embraced life and embraced everything.
And it's so inspiring, literally, hearing you talk about him, because you're talking so positively about him, and rightly so, because by the sounds of it, he was an absolutely amazing person. And like you said, he wouldn't want to dwell on it. He wanted you to help the next person, and that's amazing. So on that note, is there any advice that you would give to anyone that's maybe it's similar in his position or even in your position, being close to it firsthand?
I'd say, talk. The main message is to talk and to make sure we have that person to talk to. It's important, but oh my God, there's so much more. There's so much more to life, and really, you have to kind of take the opportunity to live life the best you can, because who knows what's around the corner. It's okay to feel sad, obviously. If you want to, if you work really hard for something, you put everything into it, and it doesn't go the way you want. It's okay to be sad, and it's okay to kind of be disappointed. But there's always people who will be there to talk, and even if at the time you don't think it, just take that first step.
Yeah.
Take that first step. Actually reach out to people. Reach out to talk, because I think you'll find that people will actually have that ability to kind of give you that support you need, and people will want to help you and talk to you, and that is taking that first step and actually reaching out.
Listening to their stories, mad. The way they spoke about Harry and the things they've done since, so inspirational. But the question's still the why, not the what if, but the why. There's one story out of thousands across the country. It's the literal tip of the iceberg. Nobody knows what happened underneath, and that's the scary part. To try and understand a little bit more about the why, I made my way to Devon to speak with a mental health professional about what it is that still keeps us silenced.
So I'm Tim, and I'm a mental health nurse. I've worked in a variety of mental health settings for 24 years now. The reason I started doing that really was because of my own experiences. I had a near-death experience when I was 16, a motorbike crash, and I ended up in critical care for a long time. And that shifted my focus and made me want to kind of work within healthcare and try and understand a bit of, trying to make sense of my own trauma and experiences, really.
So why is it we feel like we can't speak up?
Yeah, again, individual will all have different reasons, different barriers really to us being able to open up about our mental health or our struggles with that. But we all have mental health. And obviously when we're talking about mental health, that's actually a positive thing. It's important that we look at the language around it, because people often will say the term mental health, and when maybe they're referring to mental health issues or illness, if you like, to go to kind of that length of it. So health is positive, and so that's why a big challenge I think in society is about the language. The reality is, I think if I can say I struggle with this to you, hopefully that will give you an allowance to say, you know what, Tim, I struggle too. If I come to you one morning and say, hey Owen, how are you? I know what your response to me is likely to be. It'll be, I'm fine, even if you're not.
Yeah.
Even if you're struggling. I'll ask you again, I say, are you sure you're fine, Owen? You'll say, yeah, and you dismiss it. So we've got to press past that. We're saying, do you know what, actually, it's okay if you're not.
So like we said about it's, seems to be a trend in people not wanting to talk. Do you think those reasons that we've mentioned, do you reckon that is the trend?
What I'm seeing is there's a split. Okay, there's a couple of splits actually within our society at the moment. So some things are trending and people are opening up, celebrities, people, influencers saying, I struggle with this. So things like depression, anxiety, they're almost okay to be open about. There are some things that people struggle with that are still taboo. Things like eating disorders, psychosis, personality disorders even, where people don't feel like they can open up because that's what their experiences are, and that's not being widely shared and spoken about. For me, again, it's back to that message of let's own it. If I can say actually it helps me to talk to you, I'm not expecting you to do anything with that, just to sit there and do what you're doing now and nod and say, yeah, Tim, I get it. Yeah. That in itself can be a huge weight lifted.
But I guess we also need to touch on the fact that mental health doesn't, like you said, it's a positive thing, doesn't necessarily mean, right, mental health, that's suicide.
What leads people to suicide is that they can't carry on with the pain that they're experiencing, be that physical or emotional pain. The sense that I'm going to be in pain every day and this is what my life is and it's never going to get better, that's what drives people to have act on those suicidal thoughts that we will all have, but we don't all act on. Again, if we can say, I have suicidal thoughts from time to time, do you? Let's talk about that. Get that really out in the open.
Yeah.
That I think is huge, because too many people are dying unnecessarily because they don't feel like they can talk about it. They feel like they're the only one experiencing that. I use the example of my football team doing badly.
Okay, yeah.
Because that gets me down, it hits me hard. I'm like, they're going to get relegated, this is rubbish, But I know that even if that happens, there'll be a time when they come back and they'll be winning again. Yeah. So,
It's a really good analogy.
From that. I'm a Leicester fan, so...
Oh, I'm a West Brom fan, so well, in the same sort of boat.
If we can win the league, then, there's belief that, anybody can achieve anything, really.
Football analogies aside, what Tim had said really made me think. There are so many different options out there, but people still don't want to speak up. Why is that? Maybe it's because they don't know how? Or maybe it's because they don't know they're there. One of the options available to Paul and Karen is a charity called Papyrus. So I came to their office in London to speak to Lauren about what she does and why she does it.
So my name's Lauren and I work for Papyrus, which is a young suicide prevention charity.
Why do you personally work for Papyrus?
So I work for Papyrus because I'm very passionate about the subject. Any life lost to suicide is one life too many, and whatever I can do to add a drop into the ocean for changing that, I want to do. When I was 14, I lost my dad to suicide, and that was obviously a really difficult thing for me to go through and my family. And it's only in the last kind of few years, and actually as a result of working at Papyrus and understanding more about suicide, that I've looked back and reflected and realised that I was quite suicidal myself. I'm here because I don't want anyone to go through whatever my dad was going through to decide to take his own life, and neither do I want people to go through what I went through, having bereaved him. Still bereaving him, it's not something that ever goes away. So that's why I'm here, to spread that awareness, spread that hope. We've all heard the term committed suicide, and at Papyrus we actually encourage to move away from this term because it directly links to when suicide was a crime but no longer is. So died by suicide is probably a much more neutral term to use, but that isn't common knowledge as of yet. So we still, that British kind of stiff upper lip, keep calm, carry on. We've had that culture of not talking about things. So trying to break that down and get more people to talk and open up, because we know that the more we talk about suicide, the more we actually decrease the risk. It's just pushing more of that understanding, pushing more of that awareness that hopefully will change that taboo nature that still exists around suicide.
So now that I've talked the talk, it seems only fair that I metaphorically walk the walk by talking. And who better to do that with than with my mum? So obviously you know that I've had not mental health issues, but I've had times when I've not been quite switched on. And I've told you about it, and I've not told many others about it, but I haven't told you the full thing, because there's been times before where I've thought, I wonder how far out there I could just go and stay out there, and that be it, and disappear, make it all disappear, which is horrible to think. But then there's also been times where I've thought, suicide's too good for me, and then I've thought, you know what, and I hate myself for it, I always think, not always, but I think, how could I want something really horrible to happen to me, so it's off my back, it's off my shoulders, it's not me doing it.
See, this is when you need to seek help, when you have thoughts like this. I mean, I knew you were down, but I didn't realise you were that. But then, to be fair, I've been like that, so...
Yeah, but you spoke about it and you got help.
Yeah. And that's what you have to do, you have to speak about it.
Yeah.
But also, what you've got to remember is, if these things happen, if you do these things, it's not... You've got the easy way out. We have to live with it for the rest of our lives.
It's sort of one of the things that really made me think. It's like, it's easy for me, but what about everyone else? What about what I'm leaving behind? What about the football on Saturday, you know?
Not quite, but...
No.
Yeah, but there is a help out there, that's the thing, and that's what you've got to remember. It's like, you're feeling this now.
But you won't feel like that forever. And I don't feel like it now, I'm just saying I have felt like it.
Yeah, but you'll have those dark moments again, you'll have those dark thoughts again. You'll have a bad day and those dark thoughts will come back, but you need to speak to people about it. You can't keep it bottled up. Keeping it bottled up is the worst thing you can do.
No.
No one's got an answer. I've got the answers for you. I can't give you the answers, but I can be there for you.
Like, now I've said it, I don't want people to look at the documentary and go, oh, it's a bit sad, isn't it?
Yeah, but they've got to see that you've done the right thing, actually, by talking about it, and people need to talk about it, and that's what the documentary is about.
Good afternoon. It is the 14th of April 2024, my 22nd birthday, and I should be a lot happier than I am, but that's okay, and I know that. But I'm usually the most bubbly, excitable, make light of any situation person in the room, but behind closed doors I'm like this, and that's not okay to be like that alone, I guess. If there's anything anyone takes from this documentary, it's just to talk. People will always rather talk to you face to face than talk about you when you're gone. But now it's time to flip the script, because yes, life is tough, and of course it has its bad bits, but it also has some really, really good bits, and you don't want to miss them. So just talk. You don't have to suffer in silence anymore. Just talk.